Hello everyone, it's Haley. Welcome to my first market vlog in New Zealand. I am so excited to finally share with you some New Zealand content. So let's get on with the video. I will definitely give you all of the market recap statistics, including what I sold, and the prices and things like that. But first, let's go to some market footage. Here's my setup. We didn't have any display things, so we used a bed sheet and a side table from our Airbnb. We will not be bringing the side table again. It was way too bulky. Embroidered the face of this yellow frog and added angry eyes to these octopi. And here's an overview of my side of the market. I decided to change up my display a little bit. Finally made my first sale after an hour into the market. It was a little bee. I also decided to crochet a mushroom since I hadn't made any of those yet. Hayden refused to use a chair, so he just kept getting closer and closer to the ground as the market went on.
Probably gonna crash, but we go.
We just sold an octopus and an axolotl, so that was $15 total. And the mom was trying to convince her kids to get a dragon, but they didn't want the dragon. We just sold squid, the like ocean colored one. Just sold 2 frogs and I finished my mushroom. First, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my experience with this market. I didn't really know what to expect. I had never done a market here, and I didn't know if the same things that had done well before would still do well here. And I was struggling with how to price things because I wanted to just do a price conversion. One New Zealand dollar is about 60 cents US. So I was just going to do it that way, but then things were pretty expensive. So I was like, is anyone even gonna buy this? And I was thinking it was gonna be okay until I started doing some research and looking at other New Zealand vendors, specifically crochet vendors, and all of their prices were like the same as in the US without the conversion. So if I had something for $10 in the US, they were also selling it for 10 New Zealand dollars. So that would mean that I was losing money or not getting as much money. And so I was like, okay, maybe I can't do the price conversion. What about doing like minimum wage per hour? But minimum wage here is a little over $23 an hour. In the US, or in Tennessee specifically, it's $7.25 an hour, which I was not giving myself minimum wage. I was doing $10 an hour. And I tried doing the $24 an hour, and I was like, okay, this is a lot of money, especially with the cost of yarn. Yarn here can also be more expensive, especially Bernat yarn. It's very expensive. I don't think people will want to spend this, especially after looking at the prices of other people's things. So I was a little discouraged. A couple of the girls I talked to were giving themselves $10 an hour, which is less than half of minimum wage. And I'm like, how are these, what? This doesn't seem fair. And their excuse was that they're doing it more as a hobby and not as a job, which I understand that, like, it is a hobby, but you still should be getting paid fairly for your work. So that discouraged me a little bit, but I mostly just stuck with kind of just kept my prices the same from the US, maybe increased them a little bit. By the same, I mean just keeping what I had as $10 US dollars, also just doing 10 New Zealand dollars. I did increase the price on a few things, but for the most part it stayed the same. Now to the actual market. We've actually moved since I signed up for all these markets. So all these markets are at least a 2-hour bus ride away. Which is not ideal, and I don't know if it really is worth it so far, but I wanted to go anyway since we had already paid the vendor fee, and just to see what happens. So we get there maybe 20 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes before the market starts, and one of the vendors was like, oh, I thought this was a no-show, but you actually set up pretty fast. And I was like, yeah, our setup's pretty fast. And I'm starting from scratch again here, so I don't have a table, so I've been trying to find markets that provide tables. I don't have a tablecloth, so I just took a bed sheet from the Airbnb that I'm staying at and used that. I also don't have any display things, so I took a side table from the Airbnb I'm staying at, and Hayden was strongly advising against that because he was like, well, what if something happens to it? We're gonna be liable. So I just took it for that one market, and it worked out pretty okay. Like, at least it added some sort of height to the display, but I don't think I'll take it again because even though it was like a small table, it was just awkward and bulky to take around, especially with us having to carry the inventory as well, which was about like 3 tote bags. The market was very slow. It started at 10 in the morning, and I also noticed that people were nice, but they weren't like as enthusiastic as in the South where I'm from. Yeah, we get most people who don't buy anything, but still there's people who are like, oh my gosh, this is so cute. Even if they don't buy it, they usually comment on it. And the vendors too have been very enthusiastic as well and supportive of one another. And not to say that they weren't at this market, they just were more kept to themselves. The 2 vendors next to me, they were still nice. One of them was commenting like every once in a while, which is to be expected. But at pretty much every market I've been to in the US, there has been at least one vendor person who we have like a good conversation with. But I mean, this is only one market. I can't base all of New Zealand or all of Auckland off of this one market. But I just noticed that people tended to keep to themselves more, and even the customers, like there were a few that would be excited about what I was selling, but most of them would kind of just walk by, glance at it, and keep going. A lot of them would beeline to my neighbor because she was selling, what is it, terrariums? Like a little plant in a jar, which is funny because the vendor at my first US market, that was my vendor neighbor, they also were selling plant related things in little like moss terrariums. So I thought that was funny, but her stuff was pretty cool. Now to the sales. The market fee was $30 for this market, which is pretty good if I compare it to the fees in the US, because my fees there were usually over $50 for each market. So that's nice that they have lower vending fees here. This market was also pretty slow. I mean, there was some foot traffic, but for my booth especially, it was slow. The market started at 10 a.m. I got my first sale at 11, and it was a bee. I made these bees with Bernat blanket yarn, so they turned out a little bigger than I had expected, and I still decided just to go with $5. I had gotten the yarn like on extreme sale, so I wasn't too concerned about prices being a little lower this time, but that bee sold for $5. This market was very discouraging to me in the first half because my 2 neighbors seemed to be making a lot of sales, or at least getting a lot of foot traffic to their booths, and I had only maybe had a couple people just look. People didn't even really say hi unless I initiated first, so that was a bit discouraging. When I finally made my first sale, my hopes got a little bit higher. Even though it was just one bee for $5, I had sold something, and so I was excited about that. 2 hours go by and I haven't made another sale, and that's when my hopes start to go down a little bit. But then I made 2 sales pretty much back to back. An octo for $10 and an axolotl for $5. I believe that was within the same purchase. One was a red octo. I had actually just finished embroidering the eyes to make them look angry after a vendor had pointed out my Grinch and had enjoyed the angry look of him. So I was like, hey, maybe I should embroider some angry eyes onto some of my octopi. I only did it on a few of them. I did it on the red one because red seems like an angry color sometimes, or it can be love, but whatever. And then also a couple of duplicate colors, and the red one sold for $10. And then a few minutes later I sold a squid for $20, and this was one of those sales where someone just walks up and is like, I'll take that. And those sales, I don't know, that's they're funny because they just catch me off guard, but I'm like excited about it because I made a sale, and it's always one of the more expensive items when that happens. So I don't know, it's just like a happy, unexpected surprise. And this was the Ocean Shades Bernat yarn. And this lady actually ended up reaching out to me to buy 2 more of these, which I don't know if I'll be able to give her more, because this was when all of the Bernat blanket yarn was $3 on Hobie, and it's $37 skein over here. So I don't think that will be worth it for me, especially since I don't know how many more markets I'm gonna be able to do. I don't think I have enough yarn left for that. So I'm going to have to see. Maybe she will like another color. My next and final sale of the day was around 2 o'clock, and I sold 2 frogs. One was green and one was yellow, and the yellow one was the one that I made on the bus. And I had just used green yarn to embroider his face because I hadn't brought any embroidery thread with me or black yarn or anything, so I wasn't really proud of his face. So at the market I decided to change it last minute, and it paid off because this little girl got both of the frogs. And I do remember her because she was trying to convince her mom to let her buy more things. But yeah, that's all the sales I made at this market. I was very surprised that the chickens did not sell at all. Usually chickens and octos are my best sellers, but I only sold 1 octo and I sold no chickens. So that was really surprising to me. I did notice that the $5 items were my best sellers, which usually is the case. I sold a total of 5 items. All of them were cash, and my sales totaled to $50. And then you subtract the $30 vendor fee, and I made $20, which is not great. I've definitely done worse. Throwback to my $10 sale. I don't know if that's worth it, but at least I passed the vendor fee. I did not calculate the travel it took. If I calculate that, it would be a lot lower. I didn't have any expenses for decorations because I just used what I had. A table was provided, and my mom bought the yarn for me, kindly. But hopefully it gets better next time. It's my first market, so I don't really know how to improve or what to do better next time. I don't really want to decrease the price of anything, but I guess I will go into my next market and maybe see after that if there's a pattern and things that are selling well. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to see more crochet content from me. And if you're interested in New Zealand vlogs, check out my main channel and you can follow me along there. Stay creative.